Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani here at 412-575-2600. Hope you had a nice Halloween. And right now we're going to check out Darla Mueller, who joins us over at 93.7 The Fan. Yes, Finding
Wake
Nemo.
up,
We're
fishy.
trying to find
Wake
Mueller.
up, fishy.
You told me you were going to do it. I didn't think you would, but you came through.
Let me tell you right now, Bob, I'm doing it for you, for the viewers, because see this thing right here, this wig? This is very, very scratchy, very uncomfortable, but I intend on selling this the entire 25 minutes here, so let's dive right in. Darla is ready to talk some sports.
Well, Darla, let me ask you first about, we'll start with the most recent activity. That is the Penguin game tonight, because they got a much-needed win. It wasn't easy because Lucas Dostal, who's a 24-year-old up-and-coming goalie with Anaheim, who was outstanding in their last game against the Islanders, was outstanding again tonight, 44 saves on 46 shots. The only 2 goals that got by him were off the stick of Sidney Crosby. So I guess if you're looking to end a 6-game losing streak, Darla, the best thing you do is count on Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, this would have been a crushing game for them to lose because they dominated play. They were just out shooting Anaheim, I think, at one point, well over 2-1. And the one goal that they even got in regulation, the equalizer, was a masterful tip-in by Crosby. So it wasn't even like they could beat this guy with a traditional shot. They had to kind of get a misdirection, goalie can't see, goalie screen kind of play. And then Crosby, obviously in a 3-on-3 situation with a turnover, walked in and had all day to decide what he was going to do. I still don't think this changes the Penguins' fortunes or anything like that, but if they were going to have any chance of starting to claw back to respectability, you had to win a game like this one where you controlled and carried play for the majority. You probably played the style Mike Sullivan wants to play, which is puck possession, a lot of shot attempts, a lot of shots actually getting through. You lose one like this, I feel like it's very demoralizing.
It is, and although there were some of the same problems that we've seen late in the game, Alex Nedeljkovic was called upon. In fact, one time it was Marcus Pettersson who had to bail him out. There was a puck on the doorstep, but again, 2-on-1, there was a breakaway attempt. Those are things you just can't see at the end of the game because if you let that go in, you don't get any points in this game, Chris. So those problems are still out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to grade on a curve here because if this was a regular Penguins team, you would probably just look at them and say, you should blow a team like that out of the water. But they're so bad and they've been so bad that I'm willing to forgive some lapses because they looked pretty strong for a decent majority of the game. The first period was one of the best periods I've seen them play territorially. But I guess it brings up the bigger question. Like, think about what they had to do. Granted, you run into a hot goaltender any old night and have to really scratch and claw to get 2 points, Bob. But, are they going to have to do this all year? Because I got news for you. They can't win like this all year. They can't expend this much effort and only end up winning 2-1 in overtime. It's just, they're going to have to find another way. I don't really know what that way or that path is for them, but they're going to have to find a formula that isn't we're going to outskill teams and isn't we're going to dominate territorially. They're going to have to become like a strategic counterpunching team, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with some of the games they have coming up. We have a tweet here from Ryan Zedek on Twitter, at KDPomp, at Chris Mueller PGH, as your hair is, what is that, an oxygen?
These are my braces, Bob. I was trying to just readjust my
you're
dental
putting it
wire.
by your nose. I thought you had to get oxygen or something. I thought Darla was struggling when she went up the steps. Anyways, there's lots of empty seats tonight at PPG Paints Arena, which I would expect because they're coming off that Fleury game, but also it's a Thursday night against a team that not many people know about nor care about. They're kind of rebuilding with some good young talent, and it's Halloween. So I didn't expect it to be, a sellout. Did you?
No, I expected it to be kind of a festive crowd. I don't know if there was another Darla in the crowd tonight with a bagged fish, but there were a lot of costumes. I mean, my brother-in-law was there dressed as one of the many iterations of Jaromir Jagr. I'm sure there were a couple of Jagr clones in the crowd. But I know for a fact there were lots and lots and lots of empty seats. And I would stress for people, I'm not trying to pile on the Penguins here by any stretch, but this is not a team that draws well when they're not playing well. And if you're going to go on what appears like it'll be early on here, the third straight season without a playoff berth, it's just not going to be the hot ticket. The upside of that, the flip side of that is if you got a kid who loves hockey and doesn't necessarily care if the team wins or loses, it's going to become a lot more affordable to go to these games, at least in the short term here, because I just don't think they're going to be a hot ticket in town. I think you have a harder time getting into a Pitt women's volleyball game the way things are going the next month or so. Yeah. I mean that. I mean, they are a hotter ticket.
Number one, right.
And if Jeff Capel gets Pitt basketball going big time, you know what this will be like, Bob. A repeat of the early 2000s when Pitt hoops was the big draw and the winter sport in town, and the Penguins, frankly, you could get in pretty easily in 02-03.
We got to take a break. We have plenty more to get into, including the Steelers, and they had 2 award winners today. We'll also talk about those big matchups coming up over the weekend with Ohio State, Penn State, Pitt, SMU. It's all coming up next as we broadcast here live from KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from our friend Alex Kozora over at Steelers Depot. He says, crazy stat of the weird. Beanie Bishop is the first Steeler to be named NFL Defensive Rookie of the Month since Kendrell Bell in 2001. He won it in October and November, and he's the first undrafted rookie to have 3 interceptions in a season like this. The last one to do was Tony Dungy back in 1977. So I want to just start real quick with there before we go to Lions, Chris, because this week Cam Sutton was activated. He plays a role similar to that of Beanie Bishop, although we saw him in the preseason. He was back at free safety. So I'm wondering how he fits in, and does he at all take time away from Beanie Bishop?
Well, I think it's a matter of how much time he takes away from Beanie Bishop, not if. I mean, I think they're going to slot him right back in there at that nickel corner spot. I think if you talk to people who were watching Cam Sutton when he was allowed to work out and practice with the team before he got his suspension kicked in and the game started, they'll tell you he looked great. At least that's what I heard from most people. There was a lot of enthusiasm that guy had rediscovered himself at what was probably his best position. People will tell you he was miscast in Detroit, being asked to play as more of an outside corner and stopping maybe number 1 and 2 wide receivers. So I think Mike Tomlin proved in sort of a different scenario that he loves veteran players when he went right back to Russell Wilson as soon as he was ready to go, despite Justin Fields being good. I know quarterback is just its own animal, but how would this be any different? I mean, this is Beanie Bishop. He's been more good than bad for sure. Obviously, there have been lapses here and there, but interceptions are what they are. He changed that Jets game with that pick, maybe changed the course of their season, the Steelers' season in some ways with that pick, the way that game looked like it was going. And I think he's going to have his snaps seriously cut into. And you know what that means, if I'm right? Cam Sutton had better be very good in there if he does take most or at least a majority of the playing time from Bishop, because there's going to be a lot of people clamoring for the rookie if Cam Sutton gets beat the first week he's back.
Yeah, but he hasn't played in a while, so I might expect that. Not unlike what we saw from Russell Wilson in his first half of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it's nice to have another guy back there for sure. All right, let's get to the Lions at 412-575-2600, beginning with Dave in Murraysville. Hello, Dave.
Hey, guys, how you doing tonight?
Good. What's up?
Hey, a couple quick questions on the Pens. Hey, what do you think about Nedeljkovic and Blomqvist being the number 1 and number 2 goaltenders for the season? I mean, I don't know Jari's situation or how much he makes, but would they be able to trade him?
No.
And do you guys think that we need a new general manager, man? Your thoughts?
Well, that's not happening because he is held in high esteem by the Fenway Group, and I would probably say the same about Mike Sullivan. I think with regard to those 2 goaltenders, no and no. I don't think Blomqvist is ready to handle that yet. I like what he can do. Nedeljkovic is a good backup. I still think this season will, sooner or later, return back over to Tristan Jarry, and I think they have to do it. That's their only play with him.
Bob, can I ask a philosophical question of you?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are into sports enough to be watching the nightly sports call, obviously means you're a pretty avid fan, and have never heard one syllable about Jari's contract situation, which is the sense I got there? I don't know about his contract. No, his contract, man, is the reason that you are going to see Tristan Jarry playing NHL games sooner rather than later. I think that they are handcuffed with him. They've tied themselves to him. They already have their max number of long-term buyouts, so they can't even do a contract buyout on him because they have other bad deals that they're trying to do that with or that they've already done that with. And you know what? I'll go back to this. This is a very grim sort of thing to bring up. But if the goal here becomes at some point to say we are going to be a lottery team this year and take our chances and try to get the number 1 pick, You could do a lot worse to the quiet sort of goal of losing hockey games than put Tristan Jarry out there, because it's been what he's been doing most of the time when you've put him out there trying to win hockey games. So if you're trying to sink to the bottom of the standings, you might as well trot him out there.
I don't know that they're going to do that, though. I think, last year was a similar beginning. I don't know that they were this bad at 3-7-1, now 4-7-1, but they started slowly. They were under 500. And then they end up just a couple of points out. So I still think this team will figure out a way to be competitive until the end.
Well, how long do you think?
I'm just saying.
Well, let me ask you, though, if we get to Thanksgiving and they're not looking like they've found any answers here, because I do think this is a worse-looking team than last year. Like, how long do we let this go, Bob? Like, how long would you say they'll let it run?
What do you do to try to sink to the bottom, though? I mean, you can't do anything with your superstar players. I think one of the reasons why Malkin and Crosby have played together now 2 games in a row, normally reserved for when you only need offense, is because they're trying to get those guys going. They know how important they are, but that leaves a big vacancy in lines 2, 3, and 4. So my question is, let's say they do go on a little bit of a roll here. Nothing great, but enough to get back to 500. You don't think they're going to try to get to the playoffs? Because that was the original intent with bringing everybody back.
I think they'll try, but I think that quietly Kyle Dubas knows the hand he has largely had dealt to him. Now, he's dealt some of the cards himself, and they haven't been good ones, but you just said it, though. They just combined their top 2 centers on a line, and it left gaping voids in your next 9 forward spots. Your next 3 lines really all have major problems. I guess the point I'm trying to inartfully make here is they might not have to do anything other than ice their regular players and put them out there and let them play to sink to the bottom. That's what I'm trying to get across here. Tristan Jarry's their $5+ million goalie, and putting him out there might justify his salary and also might help with the end of, well, we don't really want to be that good of a team.
Or Tristan Jarry comes up, rediscovers himself, gets to where he was midway through last season when he went on a good run, and all of a sudden they have a chance to throw him or trade him. I mean, they can actually move him because somebody might be desperate enough to say, well, he's regained his form, and that way you get out of a deal to some degree. I don't know.
I would love to see that, but that would be a Herculean turnaround for a guy that just appears to have, in a mental sense, for that position, which is such a mental position, lost his way.
Let's go to Mark in Pittsburgh, who's found his way to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, you've probably been asked this a lot already, but I feel like the Steelers got cheated having the bye after a Monday night game rather than a Sunday game. I felt like they lost a day, maybe even 2 days.
No, they only practiced 1 day. I think it's perfect. It comes at 8 games into the season. If you had to have it in week 3, you'd be complaining that it was too early. I think it's actually a perfect time for a bye, Chris.
Well, I always like it when a caller says you've probably been asked this a lot. Nope, you're literally the first person I have heard either on TV or on the radio say that they got jobbed on their bye week by having it be after a Monday night game. The earliest you can have one's week 4. I think those are the teams that probably hate their bye week, or maybe week 5. I forget. I always think it's week 4 when some teams get it. I think that's the worst possible scenario. Honestly, I think anything week 9 or so or later is a pretty good bye week to have because I think it's at the point in the season when teams are starting to get decently beat up. Now you're 6-2, the home stretch of your schedule starts, and there's a good chance you get Zach Frazier back. There's a good chance you get Cordero Patterson back. You start to get pretty healthy at the right time, hopefully, and stay pretty healthy. I think that's a pretty good thing for the Steelers.
Real quick, Penn State and Ohio State. We talked about it last night. Do you have a better feel one way or the other here on that game for Saturday at noon?
I am a firm, believe it when I see it from James Franklin against a team that is always lorded over him like Big Brother. Drew Aller, it seems like, is going to go. It didn't feel like, from what I was watching video-wise, that he was compromised at all at practice. And yet, I think I've got to pick Ohio State to win this football game, even though I don't think Will Howard is anything special for them. They've got about a $20 million roster. They might have a higher payroll in Columbus than a couple of major league teams, but I'll pick them without a ton of conviction just because I haven't really seen Penn State do it when the chips are on the table here.
But I think Ryan Day's under his own bit of pressure too. He's not fared all that well in some of these meaningful games down. But bottom line, Franklin's 3-17 against top 10 teams. He's 1-9 against Ohio State. That's something that has to change. He may not admit that pressure's there, but it's there. We're going to take a break on that note. Come back, we'll talk about Pitt and SMU. And it looks like Eli Holstein has been given a clearance and a green light. We'll do it as we continue right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Pat Narduzzi Show, hosted by Larry Richert, when he said that Eli Holstein is a go, that he was cleared to participate in this game. And they're going to need him like he was 3 weeks ago. The last 2 weeks, not so much. What's your take on this game? Because I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game if both teams do what they're supposed to do.
I do think it's the best team Pitt has played. It's the toughest environment. They're going in as a one-touchdown dog. I think that they're probably closer to SMU than that, but we'll see if what we saw from Eli Holstein, specifically against Syracuse, where he looked unsure of what he was throwing to, situations he was throwing into, almost like he had been gun-shy because of the picks he threw against Cal. We'll see if that continues or if he and Cade Bell have kind of gotten things smoothed out. I think there was a reason that Pitt really wanted him to throw late in that game before he eventually got knocked out. I think they wanted him to build some confidence, Bob. If he is good, they can absolutely win this game. But as great as their defense was against Syracuse, I don't really think they can beat SMU just with a low-scoring slugfest. That's too good of a team, too good of an offense to beat.
NFL tonight, the Jets are desperate for a win, and they lead Houston 14-10. We have a tweet on that real quick. The Volk says, Bob, Chris, last Sunday we had a touchdown called back because the same foot came down twice inbounds. Tonight, one foot and the shin connected to the same foot was called a touchdown. How's that any different? I didn't see the play. I don't know what he's talking about there. Did you, Chris? And to me, if it's a shin and a foot, then that's okay. The shin counts as a foot.
I didn't, but I think that the shin or any other part of the leg that's not the foot counts, like one knee down counts as you're in bounds, or you get like a butt cheek down, you're in bounds that way. So I think things that are body parts that are not your feet. No, I know. I say
Sounds
it, you know,
like Halloween,
yeah,
the movie
Chris,
here. Body parts. We got cheeks. We got shins
right. We
and
got
legs.
I got fish in a bag here. I mean, yes, I'm really breaking all the rules. But I think anything that's not a foot counts a little differently where body parts are concerned. So I think that's why that was a touchdown. Also, Malachi Corley, what are you doing dropping the ball before you cross the goal line?
I know
that
how
is
that
the
happens.
dumbest celebration in
It is.
sports.
And we're out of time. Thank you for joining us, Darla. Good night.